All right, so, all right, your stance can be staggered, all right, but we're also going to be safe enough to where I can have a squared stance if I prefer that. All right, the only problem with a staggered stance is that I'm telling my opponent which way I'm going to pass. All right, if I'm right foot forward, all right, I have to step this way. All right, if I step this way, all right, you can just enter my legs. All right, same thing vice versa, left leg forward, I have to step this way. All right, I can't step that way because then we sit onto my legs. All right, so, all right, where we place our hands, all right, and how our posture is positioned, all right, we should be safe enough to where we can have a squared stance. All right, so when I go to enter my partner's guard, all right, immediately I'm gonna match his head height. All right, I don't want to be too low because if I'm too low, he can snap me down. If I'm too high, he can look to get under me or wrestle up. All right, so I'm looking to match his head level here. All right, I also want to keep my elbows, all right, relatively close to my knees. All right, if my elbows are too far out here, all right, it's very easy for him to pull me into him with my arm extended like this, all right, versus if he goes to pull me while my elbow is close to my knees, he'll pull me. All right, it's much harder for him. All right, and then we can also use that against him there. Okay, so squared stance. All right, I'm matching my head position with his. All right, and we're constantly gonna look for 2 wrist grips. All right, always. All right, if I feel my partner get a 2-on-1, stripping it, we're going back to our wrist grips. All right, we should always want this. All right, this should be a constant in this position here. Always looking for 2 wrist grips. All right, if I keep my head posture correct, my elbows close to my knees and 2 wrist grips, all right, it doesn't matter if his feet touch mine. All right, it doesn't matter what connection he makes, all right, because without his hands, all right, he can't make it strong here. All right, he can go to double butterfly sweep me from here. All right, he can't do that. All right, he doesn't have his hands. All right, he's pretty vulnerable. All right, we're also very safe. All right, a lot of the teaching I'm going to be doing is just how to make it hard for him to do any jiu-jitsu. All right, just trying to keep ourselves safe. So I connect my hands to his wrist. I get 2 wrist grips. I'm matching my head position. All right, now I'm going to look to either, I want to control the opposite side that I'm looking to pass. All right, so my head either has to push into him by his forehead or right on his trap here. All right, so if I want to pass that way, all right, I have to put my head on the opposite side. Okay, so I have 2 wrist grips. All right, I either position my forehead right next to his where I'm pushing in the direction I want to pass, or I put it right on his trap here. Now from here, all right, to get my opponent to fall back, I'm very simply just gonna fall into him here, all right? I'm just gonna fall into him. All right, if he doesn't post on the mat, that's perfect for us. All right, while I fall into him, all right, that's when I'm gonna switch my hands to a hip and a glute. I have my 2 wrist grips, my head positioning is correct, I move it off to the side for the way I prefer to pass. I just fall my way into him. All right, and that's when we look to connect our hands. All right, usually, obviously the legs aren't just gonna fly out like that. All right, but that's kind of how we get to our passive positions very safely. All right, if I just enter with my head up high, I just look to step in, right? I'm already entangled. All right, why should I have to pass from a deli fever or for a butter hat if I can pass without having to worry about any of that? Okay, so, all right, I'm matching his head, 2 wrist grips, my elbows are connected to my knees. All right, it's very hard for him to pull his hands back if my elbow's connected to my knees. All right, I match head position, I put my head towards either side, depending on which way I want to pass. I look to fall into him, hand goes to the hip, hand goes to the knee, and now we're in our camping position. All right, pretty simple. All right, let's do it. 3, 2, 1.